Do you believe in miracles? Yes. Those iconic words uttered by legendary broadcaster Al Michaels in 1980 inspired me. So I want to share with you a full circle story that brings us all the way back here to Blaine with the hopes that it too inspires you. So my story begins in the booming metropolis of Fairmont, Minnesota, a little town 6 miles from the Iowa border in the middle of nowhere, where I grew up as a huge sports fan. I love sports. It's my passion. The problem was I just wasn't very good at sports. In the middle is my number 10 purple Vikings Fran Tarkenton jersey that literally turned brown because I slept in it every night. Notice my fly is down there too. Nice. Thanks, Mom. But my whole world changed in 1980 when I watched The Miracle on Ice. This rocked my world. This fiery coach, Herb Brooks, one of my heroes from Minnesota, led a bunch of college kids past the Soviet Union, the greatest hockey team in the world. A team hadn't lost a game in 20 years. It was such a big deal, they called it a miracle, the greatest upset in American sports history. I said, Mom, Dad, I want to play hockey. Now, you gotta understand something about southern Minnesota. This is basketball country, wrestling country. This isn't like northern Minnesota by Canada where they pull the kids out of the wombs by their skate blades. This is different, okay? But I begged my parents to please let me go to the Herb Brooks hockey camp. They said, fine, you can go. So I went, and it was unbelievable. And I was what you call an ankle bender. I was one of these guys. Woohoo! And any hockey moms, you know who I am. And I remember one day in practice, I got to meet Herb. He was larger than life. He was really intense, but a super nice guy. And he skated over to me, and he put his arm around me, and he said, way to go, Ross. He knew my name because it was written with tape on my head. And he actually gave me an award. Now, I don't know if you guys know a lot about hockey, but in hockey, they give this award to the guy who sucks the most. And that was me. In southern Minnesota hockey, it's old school. We weren't like you rich cake eaters with your fancy Zambonis, okay? Where I grew up, we had shovels. And we didn't have fancy buses driving us around. We had vans. All the farm kids had vans. You'd have the chain-smoking parents up front and the nuclear hockey equipment smell in the back. We'd pile in and we'd shower up at McDonald's after games. And as you're about to see, as a freshman in high school, I became the starting left defenseman for the mighty Fairmont Cardinal / Domino's Pizza hockey team. We were really bad. Our high school wouldn't even sponsor us. What you can't see mixed in the chicken wire there is I had a sweet mullet going on back there. It was party in the back, baby. But that's how it is in a small town. I got to play 3 varsity sports. Well, I had a choice to make as a high school senior, small college football, or I could be a Golden Gopher, and I love the Gophers. My family bled maroon and gold. Mom and Dad were Gophers, my big brothers were Gophers. In the late 80s, they were a powerhouse. I got season tickets, it was incredible. All these kids get drafted, they play pro. Winter semester rolls around, turns out there's a class you can take. It's called Introduction to Ice Hockey 101. This is the underwater basket weaving class players taught for their scholarships. So I took this class, and for 2 days a week, for 1 hour, I got to skate in Mariucci Arena with actual real-life Gopher hockey players. It was unbelievable. I wound up becoming friends with a bunch of the guys in the team, and I'd bring them over to my fraternity parties, and we'd drink beer, allegedly. And after a while, I got to know a bunch of these guys, and they said, you know, Ross, you're not that bad of a hockey player. You should try out for the team. You should walk on. I said, come on, I'm from Fairmont. And they said, doesn't matter, we like you. We want to hang with you. Really? So I took this insane leap of faith and I walked on to the Golden Gopher hockey team, and it was the thrill of a lifetime. I was a pylon out there, but I was out there, and sure enough, my new friends were passing me the puck. I was scoring goals. They were building my confidence, and I was thinking, maybe I am good enough to play Gopher hockey, but I had to do something to make a statement, something for the coaches to notice me and put me in the lineup, and one day, an opportunity presented itself when our team captain, Todd Richards, came skating on the ice. There it was, just me and Todd. I said, this is my moment. I mean, Todd's an All-American defenseman. He'd play in the NHL. He'd coach in the NHL. This guy's a rock star. I said, I'm going to take out our star player. They're going to have to notice me, right? It's like the first day of prison. You shank the biggest dude in the yard on day one and hope that word gets out. You're going to have a very uncomfortable evening. I saw that in a movie. So he sees me coming. He knows I'm going to nail him. I got him lined up, right? But it's like he doesn't even brace himself. I'm like, okay, dude, this is going to hurt. Now, Richards, he's wearing this really weird jersey this particular practice. I'd never seen it before. It was all white with a huge red cross on the front and back. Bullseye. I lined up the crosshairs and wham, I sent him flying. It was like the check of my life. I was like, where do I sign, coach? It's fuzzy from here. But I remember flying through the air backwards. And when I landed back there and came to from literally being knockout cold, I awoke to one of our assistant coaches, a former goon in the National Hockey League, a professional fighter, with one hand around my neck, the other in a fist, ragdolling me, screaming, "You idiot! What are you doing? Our team captain's wearing a Red Cross jersey today. That means he's injured." "I'm sorry, Coach, I had the pizza jersey. I didn't get the memo." Well, Coach Wu called me into his office after practice. "Kid, this is the end of the line. I got to let you go." And that was the day my dream of hoisting the Stanley Cup died. I was devastated. But it turned out, unbeknownst to me, there was another job opening on the team. It wasn't quite as sexy as All-American defenseman, my first choice, but it was close. The team mascot, Goldie the Gopher. Now, there were two criteria for the job. You had to be a decent skater and a moron. I apparently fit on both accounts and became a giant, smelly rodent. That's actually me inside there, and I don't think they cleaned that costume since the Grover Cleveland administration. But I made lemonade out of lemons. I got to become a cheerleader, which is pretty awesome. I was the only dude in that squad. And I got to practice with the team and hang with the guys, and I had a blast. And I got into a lot of trouble as a mischievous mascot. So much trouble that as a senior, after a game one night, a publisher approached me and said, "Kid, we've been watching you. We'd like to write a book about all the trouble you've gotten into." Apparently, it's not appropriate to throw Kraft cheese singles at the Wisconsin band. Who knew? Cheeseheads. I said, "Look, I'm flattered, but other than my grandmother, who's going to want to read your book?" But it kind of spawned the idea, what if I wrote a book about the history of Gopher hockey from Goldie the Gopher's point of view? That's not bad. So I called my mom and dad and I said, "Mom, Dad, about my graduate school money." Now, Mom and Dad worked very hard at our family furniture store so I could go to grad school. My two big brothers had gone on to get their Ivy League MBAs, and this is what they wanted me to do. But I said, "I'm not interested in this college thing anymore. I want to work in sports. That's my passion. So I want to use my money to write and publish a book about Gopher hockey." I remember the words failure, disappointment, a lot of four-letter words. It's fuzzy, but the conversation ended with my dad saying, "You know what, fine. You can have your money, but you better not come crawling back to me when it's all gone." I said, "Great, I'll take it." So I dove in and I started writing this book. Now, trust me when I tell you, I knew absolutely nothing about writing books, publishing books, editing books, reading books. If you saw my grades, you know I'm not kidding. But this is what I wanted to do. 5 days into my book project, serendipitously, out of the blue, I get a phone call from Herb Brooks, my hero, who's now coaching in the National Hockey League. "Ross, heard about your book. I want in. I'll be home in a few weeks. Let's get together." Cool. I thought maybe he'd sign an autograph, pat me in the butt. No, we got together and it was life-changing. Herb told me that this was such an important book. See, he told me that his passion was to grow the game. And I think he saw in me a young go-getter who wasn't going to change the world as a player, but maybe as a journalist. And we became connected. And he told me about how important it was to grow the game and to get more kids playing hockey. And he told me about how years earlier, he drove through a blizzard all the way to Fairmont, my hometown, to start a youth hockey program. He said, "Ross, if you really believe in something, you got to get in your car. You got to get on an airplane. You got to go meet people face to face. They got to see your passion, your enthusiasm. You got to explain the differentiators about why those parents shouldn't be having their kids wrestle or play basketball, but they should be playing hockey." He said, "Ross, the wider we build the base of this pyramid, the higher we can go, man." So he helped me. He called all these famous hockey players. And he said, "Hey, get together with my buddy Ross. He's going to write this book. It's going to be good for hockey." And lo and behold, as a senior in college, I wrote my first book, Gopher Hockey by the Hockey Gopher. It became a cult bestseller when I was off to the races, doing book signings, getting on TV. I was like, wow, this is so much fun. You know, it inspired me. It inspired me to write a book. It inspired me to make a career out of it. Nearly 50 books later, I'm having fun doing what I love doing. And, you know, along the way, I got to get to know Herb. And I got to see him at the golf tournaments. And whenever I write a new hockey book, I'd always interview Herbie, and we became friends. And flash forward to 2002. It's a big time for American hockey. Herb has actually been asked to coach the 2002 Olympic hockey team. It's back on American soil in Salt Lake City. And this was the dream team. Remember the dream team? It started in basketball with Bird and Magic and Jordan. They wanted all the greatest players for world dominance. And Herb hated dream teams. Herb was all about the amateurs. He loved the kids. Herb's dream team would be a team of orphans, no parents screwing things up. He just loved the kids, but he said he'd do it. It was a big shot for American hockey. He led them all the way to a silver medal. They lost to Russia in the Olympic in the gold medal game, but it was an amazing shot in the arm for American hockey. And afterwards, Herb was offered a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract to come back and coach in the National Hockey League where he'd been before, but he turned it down. He was 65 years old at this time, and he'd missed a lot, and he said, you know what, now I'm just going to give back. It's his legacy stage, and he was going to be out doing this, speaking, and he was a very sought-after speaker. But to be a speaker, you got to write a book. And that's the day Herb called me and said, I'm ready to write that book, and you're going to write it. Whoa. It was like the voice of God had called me, and it was like, wow, I got to spend the next 9 months working with my hero, helping him write his book, and it was amazing. Flash forward to the weekend of August 11, 2003. Herb and I were up golfing together at a wonderful golf tournament, charity event for the Hockey Hall of Fame, one of Herb's favorite causes, and Herb had to leave early that day, about the 11th hole. He had a speaking engagement with the pharmaceutical company in Chicago. Everyone said their goodbyes, and I was driving home that day. I had about a 3-hour ride in front of me, and I was excited. The book was almost done, and it was going to be a game changer for me. And I turned on the radio, and I heard the news. Herb didn't make it. He was killed in a car accident driving home that day. If you're a hockey fan, that's kind of where you were when Kennedy got shot. I remember pulling over and crying and just listening on the radio as people talked about what a hockey game had meant to them in 1980, about how hockey had changed their lives. And eventually I came to the crash site not far from here where I saw this and kind of lost it. What could I do? I mean, Herb Brooks inspired me. So I decided to turn our book into a memorial, and I wrote a book called Remembering Herbie, and I learned about Herb's life. Growing up on the east side of St. Paul, winning the state high school championship in 1955 with the Governors, and then, of course, going on to play hockey at the University of Minnesota for his hero, John Mariucci. And then, of course, 1960, where Herb tried out and made the Olympic team, which was in Squaw Valley, California that year. See, in 1960, there were no opportunities for American kids to play pro hockey, so the Olympics was the pinnacle, and he tried out, he made it, and just days before they were about to light the Olympic cauldron, Coach Riley called Herbie into his office and said, Herb, I got to let you go. We got to make room for one more guy, so you're going to be the last guy cut. He was devastated. He came home and he was watching that game, that gold medal game against Czechoslovakia with his teammates, celebrating when they beat the Czechs 9-4, having a yard sale at center ice, and Herb's torn. I mean, at one point, he's thrilled. These are his best friends. He's so happy for them, but at the other time, he's devastated. They're living his dream, and at that very moment, Herb Sr., Herb's dad, looked over and said, looks like Coach Riley cut the right guy. That was a defining moment in Herb Brooks' life. It was a moment that would drive him to eventually coach his own Olympic team, to become the youngest head coach in Gopher hockey history. And what he did was he learned everything about the 10 years previously. See, most people would quit or do whatever, but Herb spent 10 years studying the Swedes and the Finns, and especially the Russians, and about creativity and the beauty of hockey and learning the difference between Canadian and North American hockey and European hockey. And he made his own system. It was revolutionary. And in 1970, he took over as head coach of the University of Minnesota and won 3 national championships. Incredibly, he'd coach in the National Hockey League with the Minnesota North Stars and the Pittsburgh Penguins and New Jersey Devils. And it was incredible learning about doing more with less, studying the Russians and how they had less to work with. You know, the players there trained in tennis courts and soccer fields. I mean, we have 350 sheets of ice in Minnesota. That's more than Europe, but they produce more talent. Why? Because they did more with less. So that's what Herb was all about, doing more with less. Today, I'm proud to serve as the president of the Herb Brooks Foundation, a foundation that's headquartered in Blaine, Minnesota, right here at the Super Rink. And our mission, to grow the game and to find the next Gretzky. We don't know who he or she is. She could be Hmong or Korean or Somali. We don't know. But our mission is to keep Herbie's legacy alive, to give opportunities for disadvantaged kids, kids with special needs, Down syndrome, autism, kids whose parents are in Iraq and Afghanistan, just to get more kids playing the game, to build the base of the pyramid, to not just focus at the kids up top, the elite ones, but to get everyone playing the game. High tides raise all ships. That was Herbie's belief. And of course, here in Blaine, the sports capital of Minnesota, maybe the Midwest, it's amazing. Such amazing things happening here today. It's incredible. In Blaine, just right across the way, we have the largest amateur sports facility in the world. It's incredible what's going on. Largest soccer facility, largest hockey facility. It's the 3rd most attended venue in the state, behind only the Mall of America and the State Fair. It's amazing what's going on over here. It's incredible. There we have the Herb Brooks Training Center, where it's amazing, from skating treadmills and being a working member of the media, working with professional teams. It's incredible what's happening in sports today, how players are getting bigger, faster, stronger, how they're doing more with less, using augmented reality and predictive analytics, cryotherapy, sleep science. It's amazing. There's so much we can learn from sports that's applicable to life and to business. The women's Olympic team trains there. They just won a gold medal in Pyeongchang in the 2018 Olympics. We're really proud of them. That's what this is all about, getting more kids involved in sports, doing the right things. And now I'm proud to announce that we're going to be building the Herb Brooks Inspiration Center right here in Blaine, where many of Herbie's biggest fans and college teammates who've had huge success in business want to give back. It's a multi-million-dollar campaign to build a center to keep Herbie's legacy alive, to bring in high school captains to teach them the 10 pillars of Herbie's success, about teamwork and about winning the right way with respect and sportsmanship, and about all the little things that were so important to Herbie. It's amazing what's happening right now. Blaine is at the center of it all. It's amazing what's going on. I'm proud to keep Herbie's legacy alive. Of course, you saw the movie Miracle. If you play hockey, you've seen it at least 100 times. It's a wonderful movie. It's a Disney movie. Herb actually died during the making of the movie. Kurt Russell, of course, plays Herb, and Herb's wife, Patty, was lobbying the Disney producers to play herself opposite Kurt and have a steamy love scene in the movie, but sorry, Patty, didn't come true. But they were smart. They got hockey players they could teach to act versus actors they could teach to play hockey. I remember the producers of the movie came to me, they knew I was writing the book, and they said, hey, is there anything we can use for the movie? And I just prophetically asked Herbie about his legacy, and he said, the name on the front of the jersey was always more important than the one on the back. It was always about we and us with Herb, never I and me. It was always about doing the right thing. So I'm very honored to be able to continue his legacy right here in Blaine, getting more kids interested in playing sports. There's his statue in Rice Park in St. Paul, where the Minnesota Wild play professionally. And he looks across that park at another Minnesota icon, a St. Paul icon like Herbie was very proud of his East Side roots. F. Scott Fitzgerald, author of The Great Gatsby, and had another famous line, show me a hero and I'll show you a tragedy. It was a tragedy we lost Herb, but I feel very honored to be able to continue his legacy, to be able to talk about so many great things, how he's making a difference. And that's what this is all about. It's about all of us for the next generation, to inspire others, to learn so much from other people, mentorship, to be able to share stories, to be able to do wonderful things for our community. That's what Herbie was all about. When I think of Al Michaels' famous line, do you believe in miracles? There were no divine interventions for Herbie. It was just about hard work, commitment, and about taking care of people, especially who Herb called the behind-the-scenes people. Janitors, truck drivers, equipment drivers, trainers. If they were up till 2 in the morning hanging equipment, they could always expect to find cold beers, hot pizza, and a personal handwritten note from Herbie, like a Willy Wonka golden ticket. Thanks, guys. I couldn't do it without you. He took care of everyone. It's an entire team, and that's what Herbie was all about. I'm honored to be able to share his legacy. I'm grateful for everything Blaine has done to keep it alive, to make it the sports capital of Minnesota and beyond. And I guess I want to leave you with this question from one of our proud rink ratters is, who have you inspired yet? Thank you.